This is Jared Bennett with ServiceNow, and I think today we're going to talk about this notion of a call record, or what formerly was called a call record, building one of those in ServiceNow. The context behind this was that on LinkedIn there was a good post that essentially asked, how do you handle sort of the service desk receiving calls, and how do you record those without cluttering up the incident table with those requests? And so essentially what they wanted was a different type of record to manage calls or interactions or first contacts or whatever verbiage you want to use, that could then be escalated into the incident table, or promptly it could be escalated over to the request side. And unfortunately, in the service desk world, we don't know which of those two it is until we're actually halfway through the call. So what I'm going to demonstrate today is just one way to generate a call, or what I'm going to refer to as an interaction type table within ServiceNow. So the first thing we're going to do is we need to make room for this. So we don't have an interaction table within ServiceNow. We don't build one. Some people have proposed using the ticket table. That's perfectly fine. Others I've seen actually build a call table. That's perfectly fine too. They're all basically the same model. For purposes of this demo, I'm just going to call this interaction. So the first thing we're going to do is on the left-hand side, we're going to go to tables and columns, and go in and actually generate an interaction table down here at the bottom of the screen. Now I'm going to have this extend the task table, and I am going to leave the U underbar in there, and that's important. That's so that we know that this is something that you generated as opposed to something ServiceNow shipped to you. Create new application named interaction. Absolutely, I want to do that. And then do I want a new module in that new application? Of course I do. I get kind of all of it in one big package. So clicking OK here, you'll see what happens is in about 5 seconds, we're going to go ahead and generate that and then on the left-hand side, I should theoretically have an interaction. Let me just cheat and do a little search for it. And indeed I do. So here's my interaction table. And if I click on interaction, you'll note I automatically have a bunch of columns. Those, of course, come directly from the task table that I extended. So a lot of built-in functionality there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and modify this form quite a bit, because this has a lot of stuff that I just simply don't want. So I'm going to right-click at the top and do a personalized form. I'm assuming most of you know how to do this. This is how you'd make manipulations to the form. And in a call type scenario, or in a first contact type scenario, there's really not a lot of this stuff that I need. I'm not going to associate any kind of assignees or configuration items. The notion of active really isn't relevant. Priority and state and even parent are not relevant either. Short description, I'm going to leave. Description I'm not going to have there. I'm going to have some comments as instead. So I'm going to use the additional comments field. And work notes I'm going to leave out as well. And then a couple new fields I'm going to add to here. In fact, I'm not even going to have these the original split in there. We need a requested for. So we don't ship one of those yet, unfortunately, in the task table. We should, but we don't. So what we'll do is I'll just create a requested for field here. It'll be a reference field to the user table. This is going to be the person on the phone, essentially. And I'm going to put that right underneath the number here. And then what else do we need? Well, how about a location? Because that's generally something we can ascertain during the first call. So I'll grab location. Location we already have, actually, which is kind of cool. So I'll just move that from left to right. What else do we need? Well, I need a call type. So this is really the notion of, is this a request? Is it an incident? So I'm just going to create a little choice list here called call type. Put that right underneath the location here. And then I want one more field, actually, just one more field called request item. And what this is going to be is this: if they select the call type of request, you have to ask them, okay, well, what do you want? So I'll put that in there. That's going to be a reference. So that's going to be to the catalog item table. Put that right underneath the call type, and that should just about do it for us. So with a quick save, I've got a nice small little form here that I need. Oh, one more thing I forgot. I apologize. Something I always do. Let me go back to personalized form. I like to put the time worked on here. So time worked, this is the actual field that was designed specifically to be able to accommodate the service desk. So you can try to figure out, how much time they're spending on the phone. I love to have that field on here because that's going to do that automatic count up thing that you'll see going on right now. So I like to have that there. Generally, I lock it down with security, but I like to have it there just so we can start to run some metrics on, what's your average call length and whatnot. Those are really good reports you can run later. All right, so all this should just be working as you'd think. If Beth called in, we can auto-populate her location with a client script. We won't for purposes of today, but hopefully you guys know how to do that. Call type, I'm going to right-click and do a personalized choices there. Two types. Incident is the obvious one, and then request. Those are the only two I'm going to have. So those are my two new choices. Cool. One thing I am going to do is I'm going to personalize the dictionary here and make incident the default. Some people don't like that, but I'm just, frankly, I'm lazy, so I don't care for filling out fields that I don't necessarily have to. So we're going to assume an incident because that will be about 90% of the calls that come in. This request item field, of course, does not need to be there if that's an incident, so that's going to be a UI policy. So I'm going to personalize and do a UI policy. And with the UI policy, it's very simple. We're going to call this, show request item field is the name of this. And real simple, all we do is we say if the call type is request, and then you save that into the system. So that's the policy, and then you define the actions. What actions do you want to take? Well, in this case, I want my request item field to be mandatory and visible. Click submit. And so very quickly, in about 5 minutes time, plus or minus, you should be able to get a pretty good looking form here. Let me just test my little logic there. And indeed, it does show up. If I incident, I get nothing. If it's request, it requires that I fill in a request item. Now, a couple of little pretty things I like to do before we get into kind of the fun stuff. The request item notion. So you'll note as I type in here, if I know exactly what it is, an iPhone 4, I can just start typing. It is a reference field, so that's just going to work out okay, and ultimately we're going to drive them to this item. But if you want more details about this is something I like to add. So let me do personalized dictionary on this field. And I'm actually going to cheat a little bit. There's two little scripts that I wrote ahead of time, or that, I actually stole these from our common practice instance. One of them is this little section down here. This is our auto-completer notion that you can put into the dictionary. So if you come down here and put in this attributes, essentially we're telling this, look, for the auto-completer, I want to use this Ajax table completer. That's not really relevant. You just have to have that. And then what I get to tell it is these are the columns that I want additionally displayed inside of that reference field. And so if I click update, assuming I have that right, theoretically, if I were to switch this to the request, rather than just getting a raw list, if I were to do a **, you will see not only the name of the item, but also its short description and its category on the right-hand side. So if I type in I here, you'll see that iPhone 4 shows me that it's in request computers and handhelds. That is sometimes very useful if you're in a situation where you have the same named item and you have them in different categories. So keep that in mind. You can actually display more than one option in a reference field. It's pretty cool. You can also do that for the user if you wanted to. If I typed in J here, rather than just having the names, if you wanted their employee IDs and phone numbers, you could do the same thing. You just add two different columns inside of that. Same syntax. All right, so what else is wrong here? Well, this is wrong. It shouldn't say task. Why does it say task? Well, we haven't told it. We haven't given it a number reference yet. So let me go to number maintenance. I'm going to click new, and I'm going to say this is for the U_interaction table. The number I want to start out with, I just always start out with 10,000. I don't know why. That's just kind of the way it is. We'll call it interaction for INT. And the number of digits, we always do 7 these days. We like 1 million, or 7 digits, which makes for 1 million possible numbers. Or excuse me, it makes for 10 million possible numbers. So there we go there. So theoretically now, if I go back to my interaction, haven't done the list yet, so that's fine. Let me personalize this list. No priority, no state, no assignee. No escalation. Short description is fine. Task type we don't need. What else do we need? Well, let's do a requested for. Let's put that in there. Probably a created date, to be honest. That's usually going to be important in this type of situation. Put that down at the bottom. And that's about it. The other thing you could do is you could do call type to make your reporting a lot easier. Where is that? There we go. Put call type up there. Click save. And now we're starting to get something going here. So now we can just simulate this a little bit. So if Jared Bennett or Jared Admin calls in, we can, from the San Diego location, we can say he requested an iPhone 4, and Jared can't use the catalog because he's lazy. Ordering for him. And that's essentially what this ends up being anyways. People just don't want to use the catalog. And then we'll put in a bunch of comments or whatever you'd expect. Now what? So we've got the record now displaying what we want. So now we're tracking calls. In fact, let me submit this into the tool. We're tracking calls or interactions or whatever you want to call them. We'll build up thousands of these. You'll be able to do your reporting on the call type to say how many calls are we getting incident versus request this month. All your reports will be built in. Very, very simplistic to do. However, there's really no magic built in here yet. This doesn't do anything. So what we have to do now is essentially, and I'll show you this. If I go in and create a new interaction, you'll note this submit button in the upper right-hand corner. That's the same submit button that exists globally in the tool. Anytime you create a new record, a new server, a new incident, a new interaction, we're going to submit, which essentially does an update or an insert into the database. We want to override that. I actually want to intercept that and have some special logic around. If it's an incident, I want to generate a new incident and take them there. If it's a request, I want them to actually order the item for that person and take them into the request item. How do we do that? Well, what you do is you do a personalize UI actions. UI actions, of course, are going to be the buttons. You'll note that there is no submit button here. It's one of the globals, which is we'd expect. What we want to do is create one here and override that. So for the interaction table, I'm going to create a new submit button. Sysverb update. Update and stay, I think is what it's called. We can validate that in just a minute. I am going to make it a form button and a form context menu. No condition of any kind, and the script is the other portion of this that I'll actually post up so you can copy and paste this as well. But the script, now don't let the script scare you at all. It's not too bad actually. The script is essentially going to let you, stinking Chrome and that, let me turn that thing off. There we go. Just a case in point there. There's a little issue with Chrome and the JavaScript editor. You can just turn it off if you want to have it work a little bit more like plain text, which is what you're going to want in that type of situation. So, oh, it didn't paste it very well. Cute. Okay, no problem. This is actually a good little exercise here. So what I have to do is, if I'm working in Chrome, which I should not have for this demo, I should have switched over to Firefox. Anytime I'm developing in ServiceNow, I switch to Firefox. Chrome works except for this stinking JavaScript editor, and we are working on that right now. But in the meantime, let me see if I can paste it in plain text. Maybe it'll work a little bit better that way. And indeed it did. Okay, cool. So just to briefly go through the script here, all it really does is says, look, if the call type is incident, take the information we know, which is the requested for, the location, a few others, generate the incident, and then take me there. If it's not, if it's a request, then there's a few things we have to do around generating the cart, and then ultimately what we're going to do is we're going to drive them to that item with it already inside of their cart. So that's all. It's just two redirects here. One's going to redirect, this is this little action redirect URL. One's going to redirect us right to the catalog to let us finish. The other one's going to redirect us to the incident. So pasting that into the button here, if I click update, now theoretically I have overridden that button. And if I open that up, if I open up a new one, let me just click new here. Nope, I have two. What that means is I actually didn't do it the right way. So let me go personalize UI actions. You have to get this name, let me go back into there. This action name has to be the same as the other one that we're overriding. This verb up here doesn't matter, or the name of it doesn't matter. It's got to be this action name. So what I need to do is let me go grab the other one. Let me click Show Globals. Let me do a show matching on the word submit. Okay, so here's mine, and here are the other two. And if I hover over that, it should say, so one of them sysverb insert, and one of them sysverb update. Mine is going to be the sysverb insert, so I just did it wrong. Let me change that very quickly. Sysverb insert. Click update, and now if I go back and create a new interaction, theoretically, I have my one submit button, which is great. So now if I go in and say, let's say Beth Anglin called me from the San Diego location. She wanted a request, and she wanted an iPhone. Beth wants an iPhone. Whatever you want to put into there. Now if I click submit, theoretically it should drive me directly to the item, and that's that script taking over. So it doesn't do the normal insert and take you back to the list. It's actually going to intercept that and say, no. We're going to run this special stuff so we can fill out this item. And we will. So we'll go in here and we'll fill out the item for Beth. We'll go ahead and order it. for her. And then once we're done, we'll be right back to where we can go in and create a new interaction. So very, very simple to do. Let me do it the other way. Let me go into interaction and click new. Let's say Jared calls from the same San Diego location, and he has an issue with SAP Financials. We'll leave it at incident. And theoretically, if I click submit, it should take me to an incident record. And indeed it did. Now you'll note what it did was it auto-populated most of it, the location, the user, the short description, the comments are already in there, and this thing's ready to go. So now I can continue on with incident management. So not a lot of magic there, but what we have done is we've now created a place by which you can maintain all of the first contacts. All of the calls that come into the service desk are now in one place, leaving the incident and the request queues alone to be reported on their own as individual processes. So coming from the help desk world, I very much like this model, and I would highly recommend you do the same. Now, a couple things I would recommend. Number one, I always go to service desk here, create a new module. I give it an order of 0 because I want it to be at the very top of that thing, and essentially what I say is I say new interaction. This is going to be a link type of a new record. The table I want is my new interaction table. And essentially what I want is an image called, let's see if we have a phone one in here. It's got to build the images first time. There we go. There's a phone image. All right. So let me click submit there. And theoretically, in just a moment, here's my new interaction. So if you log in as Beth, let me just log in as Beth so you can kind of see that. So if I log in as one of my help desk users, one of my service desk agents, theoretically they can work out of the service desk application like they're used to doing. So that new interaction button just gives me kind of a one-stop shop to go and start what it is that I wanted to do. Start with the interaction and then move on to the other two processes from here. The other thing you may want to do is actually just remove this notion of create new from incident. You may also want to remove the new button from from the lists here, just kind of forcing them into that model. The other thing I like to do is this. There's an inbound email action. Oh, if you're logged in as an admin, you can tell I'm just kind of doing this on the fly. My apologies. But if you're logged in as an admin, if there's an inbound email action you can do, you can mess with, and these are just the out-of-the-box ones. So you'll see if I go to my active, all my active inbound actions for the incident table, let me just do a show matching there. You'll see we create about 3 of them. This create incident right here, this is the big one. What you may want to do is go into here and say, you know what, instead of create incident, I want to create interaction instead. Change the table to interaction. What this does is this forces the inbound emails from anybody to actually generate an interaction instead of an incident. So if you want the interactions to truly be the sort of the first place, the first for kind of the front end for the end user community, so that you can farm them out later, there's no reason this has to be just a phone call. There's no reason in the world you couldn't have a queue of interactions that had come in via email or whatnot. And in fact, what you might want to do is do this. Personalize the format and interaction and create something like a call source. Make that a choice list. Put it right underneath the time worked there. And then for the choices there, what you may want to do is do a personalized choices. And this would be kind of the generate. Was it a call? Was it an email that came in? Was it a walk-up? Et cetera, et cetera. However, or was it a integration? Or usually this is something like monitoring alarm. You can just make these up as you go. Whatever you think is you see fit there. Of course, you're going to want to set the default value to call. That's going to be the most common one. Again, don't make them fill out fields that they don't have to. And then really what you could do is in that inbound email action, not only do the inbound emails automatically queue up the interaction itself, but you can just set a little line in there to say, hey, by the way, this is going to be an email, so that when you go back to your interactions list, one of the columns you could have on here could be that call source. And so you could have people actually monitoring the queue here to say, hey, are there any emails that have come in the last 5 minutes, any emails that I potentially haven't been answered yet or haven't been funneled, so they could actually go into here and then funnel these any way they wanted to. So lots of fun there. That's not a complete model. There's a lot more you got to do around security and notifications and workflows and that sort of thing, but that's the basic idea. You're probably going to want to create yourself a real application over here, something that looks a little bit more like Incident. Give yourself some nice colored pre-filtered modules here on the left hand side. But with that, I'll go ahead and stop. So that's kind of the call or interaction model in a nutshell.